We're back with Robert P. Fitton, and we'll be talking about elements of science fiction in Mr. Fitton's novel Sojourn. Sojourn, a temporary stay such as a sojourn in the country. Robert, isn't this novel more like a journey?
It would appear that way, wouldn't it? Sojourn is a journey, Loftus's journey, as well as my own, hidden and masked in the adventure. But it is a sojourn also, indicated by the quote from the Tabon Shah from the Holy Book, the Seba.
I have that right here. May I read that quote?
Please do.
Nothing stays the same. The world exists as a constant, unyielding process, working towards seemingly definite ends. There are no ends, no beginnings. Everything exists as a part of the continuing flux, a scattering of individual sojourns adding up to things finite yet never complete, never finalized, flowing and ebbing on forever. My goodness. From reading this, I conclude the way things are is both a temporary stay and at the same time a journey.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Just as light, according to the early electron double-slit experiment, showed a wave-particle duality, even literature can be doing two things at once. Of course, it's gotten more complicated since then with the physics.
Understood. Now you wrote the original Sojourn consisting of Desperado, the Vargot Emnas, and the Surya Khan, and then filled in Loftus's backstory in the Shanghai Incursion.
That's right.
Let's explore the sci-fi in the Shanghai Incursion first.
Sure.
The Zama pistols and rifles, as well as the ability to deceive scanners, lead to more advanced technology later in the series. Were the Zamas just a pumped-up device to add to the story?
No. We've already begun to cross over from science fiction to a functional combat weapon. Targeting a powerful beam changes the intensity and strategy of the battle. If I were writing Sojourn today, I would most assuredly include drones.
And transhumans, which would appear to be science fiction, are being developed as we speak.
Loftus and his mentor, Vernon Crawford, encounter the Chinese transhumans on Taiwan.
For our listeners who don't know what a transhuman is, briefly describe a transhuman.
More than human, transcending humans. The problem comes when the transhumans are acting on their own. And I think then Asimov's rules for robots should give us pause. Loftus and his crew encounter a slew of surprises while fighting the Chinese and the transhumans. We'll leave that for the book.
What really stunned me, and I don't want to give things away in the book, but I think the action overrides the revelation of the science fiction.
You're speaking of Loftus's impending seizing up of the machinery and the kinetic energy to the attack force.
The reducer beams. That's a deus ex machina, no?
Of course it is. Thank you, Romans and Greeks, but it happens not by chance, but because the hero makes it happen.
I must say I was impressed, or I should say in awe of something science fiction becoming reality.
There's always a counterweight. Look at Henry V in the Battle of Agincourt and the use of the Welch longbow.
Which leads me to the dreaded pike that can stop the reducer beams, but they learn it threatens the existence of the universe. Is the pike similar to what you proposed in a noble experiment way back when?
The pike is different in that it is a specific component of the battle, but the Chinese do not have the knowledge that they could be destroying the universe. The renegades in a noble experiment know exactly what they're doing to Earth.
I find that theme in many of your works, specifically another book called I Have Seen the Future, where there is a warning to humanity to think about what they're doing with technology.
In Shanghai, Loftus and the Panthers are aware of the possible annihilation and fight to stop the end of everything generated from the quantum level.
I like the easy space travel to Africa by Loftus and his compadre Zach, which right now is possible but not practical. So, we'll loosely call it sci-fi.
Zach never liked the trip.
I'm going to mention a specific piece of sci-fi without giving away the plot. It involves an accoutrement of a pattern unseen level that could be used militarily.
We'll leave it at that so we don't give away any more plot points, but the unseen level is what baffles Loftus.
Desperado, many years later. Loftus and Zach, still buddies, have gotten on with their lives. Further along in the plot, the prescient technology in Loftus's training with the Panthers becomes a real problem.
Being able to forge reality on a digital screen, let alone in front of your eyes, is extremely dangerous, as we will see. That's where the artificial intelligence alluded to in the first Sojourn volume makes it all possible.
What you've done with the lifelong containment of human beings at Bathurst Island is very close to virtual reality viewers we see today.
Except the viewers of today are headed toward Those containment cells I wrote about, where your whole life is a fiction and controlled. I wrote this 40 years before the advances of today.
You certainly made a point of the dangers of this, Robert. The novel itself. You began this mega book, at least in your head, in California.
I started thinking about aspects of what would become a huge 4-volume novel as I wrote the short stories in California. Initially, my head wasn't in it as far as starting a novel. Adjustment to the culture and to a sales job around LA, it was difficult to get a novel like Sojourn off the ground. XB234 was less complicated and just an action power enclave type novel. However, I do remember talking to friends out there about Loftus's dreams and how I called him Mike Brand, who later became his buddy reporter in the final version of Sojourn.
How in the world did you change his name to Tom Loftus?
Sojourn is billed as a novel of destiny. The beginning of the Desperado book takes place in Amherst, Massachusetts, and UMass along the trails I frequently hiked in the area. I would climb an open orange steel-painted tower like I described in the book. In my head, I outlined the action in the novel and a secret project. Generally, I wasn't happy with the name Mike Brand for the lead character. I was on that tower one morning and many people had signed their names in markers on the steel frame up top. I was in the process of writing my initials on the frame when I simply saw the name Tom Loftus and exclaimed, "That's it!"
Amazing how the contents of a novel, even before it's written, boil inside a writer's head. Tell me about the intergalactic passageway.
When I arrived on Cape Cod and when I stared out at Nantucket Sound, I envisioned the intergalactic passageway. Who was this nutcase?
More of the novel buzzing around your head. What is the intergalactic passageway?
Looks like a green ocean with infinite depth. It can be navigated with special metal ships with perforated sails that pick up energy and spew forth colorful particles. It's a warp space in the galaxy built by a civilization called Tabun Shah. The civilization was spread across planets in the galaxy by the Tabun Shah and their descendants, the Mantari.
A combination of both science fiction and fantasy. I like that a lot. And there are evil bad guys. The Creodes who fought the Tabun Shah.
Yes, the entire civilization with, or as Orson Welles quoted H.G. Wells in The War of the Worlds when he mentioned intelligence greater than man's, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that to our minds as ours are to beasts in the jungles, intellects vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes and slowly and surely drew up their plans against us. Carl Sagan referred to Wells' aliens as totally alien. I would call the Creodes brutal and lacking in human understanding, for sure.
Robert, like other space adventures, the Creodes bebop around the galaxy while the Tabun chart their intergalactic passageway. Loftus is in the middle of the Creodes trying to eliminate their descendants, the Mantari. They take out whole planets and torture the inhabitants.
The Tabun Shah used some very heavy fractal-like elements against Sard, the leader of the Creodes, the Vargademnus. With a little poetic license, Sard is stymied.
The so-called dimensional upper level. The final place of the Tabun Shah has a direct link to all religions that believe in an afterlife. Did Loftus's journey within the Tabun Shah religion reflect your own life?
The spiritual awakening by Loftus within the Mog directly follows my own conversion because, like Loftus's drastic personal upheaval, it leads him and me in another direction, like emerging from Dante's Inferno. The combining of the spiritual with the science fiction brings Loftus to the final confrontation with evil, like Jung's shadow. This is critical to Loftus's whole saga.
I did not expect the ending you wrote for Loftus, but it makes total sense. We'll move on from Sojourn in our next segment and explore some of the science fiction in Mr. Fitton's time travel and other books. This is Myra Kostecki, and you're listening to Somnium.